Hopefully, that's what I see for the future. That's why. What's your relationship with Reddit?
I'm a lurker on Reddit. I don't even have an account, but I'll go there if I.
Oh, so you don't use it very much if you don't have an account.
Yeah, but you can find stuff.
But it's different. If you have an account, it's different. You have your communities for sure. Interesting. I always, I'm really bad at guessing who's a Redditor and who's not.
You guessed me as a Redditor?
I definitely tried to peg you as a Redditor. 100%. And so Reddit is all about communities.
Oh,
and
okay.
I found communities on there that are like very specific. And I fell in love with Reddit. This is about like 2017 that I really got into it. I was kind of a lurker before that, just for like information. I think a lot of people know Reddit as like, oh, when I Google something, I just go on this forum.
Right.
What if you Google something about a show you watch and you watch it very intimately, and now this is your community, so you can talk about the show and like, get really gritty about it. Or what about if it's from where you're from? So for me, the NYC subreddit, and then the New York City spelled out subreddit, which is even more niche, like smaller New York. And then the NYC rail subreddit, which is like transit, the subway, the metro, the bus. Those things really felt really personal because it's like trivial information plus a community of which I'm from.
Are people telling stories?
Stories, pictures, information, just kind of like trivial stuff that is good as entertainment, but it also kind of serves as like, this is who I am.
Okay.
And I found this in the context of community. That's my biggest belief, is that you find self through community.
Yeah.
So I think Reddit is incredible for that. There's a community for anything. There's communities for health conditions. There's communities for people with disabilities, like specifics.
Right.
There's communities for people who vote one way or the other, people who buy certain things, or like there's snark subreddits. You watch something and you participate in a snark subreddit that kind of like criticizes the thing that you watch all the time.
Okay.
It gets that specific. There's literally a community for almost anything. Wow. So I believe in that a lot. And I found that like, I feel like I'm part of communities that are super specific, and then I kind of move around.
Okay.
Like right now, one of the communities I'm really big on is an artist that I listen to and a podcast that I listen to. And now that I communicate and participate in this community, my relationship to the music and to the show is very different. It's very much like I have a responsibility to like point this out on Reddit. I have a responsibility to like show people that, value creation and sharing. So.
But are you telling stories, or are you asking questions, or you're
Everything.
Okay.
Everything.
Yeah.
That's what a community does. Like you just contribute, just show up.
But I guess this is all through text.
I mean, there's videos, there's pictures too.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's not as like intimate in that sense, but because it's anonymous too, I think
there's like a freedom. Okay.
I think that kind of like pushes people away from Reddit. I'm not anonymous on there. I have a profile picture. I link to my other stuff. My posts are public.
Right.
I'm not just like a public facing person, and I like that. But it creates this environment where like, it's not anything about us. It's about this thing.
Right.
That we all share. Like in the last episode, we talked about how are you going to get people to dig wells together that don't believe in anything the same at all? Well, they might value well digging.
Right.
They might believe in digging wells.
Right. That's housing too, is like that.
We believe that we deserve a place to live.
Yeah.
The community is the people that are around me, and I'm going to accept them for who they are because they live in my community. And my community is me.
Yeah.
So Reddit is really, it was really important for kind of helping me find, who I was or whatever at that time in my life. Now it's just kind of like a passive social media, but it went public earlier, like about a year ago.
Yeah.
And they offered users like me, like, ones who contribute a lot, like an early buy-in to the stock.
Oh.
And I asked my friend about it, who is like into finance and that sort of thing. He's like, no, I don't really see the value in a new social media. He's like, it's kind of late. Like, it's not like they just came out. Like Reddit's been around for a while.
Yeah.
I don't trust all these social medias, and I don't see it out competing the other ones. And I'm like, okay, I see what you mean. And then I wrote about it. I wrote about the power of community and how people can find themselves through the things that they care about, that are not about them. And then later in the year, I decided to check back on the stock. This shit's up like 300% from when it IPO'd last year. Just like straight up, like crazy. And I'm like, okay, what's the analysis here? Like, what's the finance bro analysis of why this goes up? The power of community. That's literally what they talk about. I'm like, okay, like y'all are getting it. The market is getting it. Everything is about community. If there's an app that centralizes communities of the internet, they call it the homepage of the internet.
Right.
If that's making money, that's the future. If it's going straight up.
Yeah, to make it incentivize the market to community. Yeah.
If, you know, the soulless, faceless, cash-based thing is finding value in something where, you know, these people on the internet are kind of just coming together. They see that the ad network of Instagram and like, you know, LinkedIn or whatever it is, TikTok is banned. It's like, where are people going to go?
Yeah.
Not the place where it's like, oh, we're going to watch what people show us or what an algorithm shows us. I'm going to choose where I go. That's Reddit.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of like communities and capital. But because what you would want, right, is like what's gonna be the opposite force on that? It's gonna be like if there's no growth economy around this. Like let's say people, like for example, like if in your housing, if you get control of the housing, you create your community. It's like, are you in a position where you're trying to, well in that sense you're gonna own it, right? Because if you're not in an owning position or you're like in a renting position, are you always gonna have to sell the idea to the renting class of why this community is good for their business and like the complications of that conversation?
Say like if a business is trying to operate in my community?
No, I'm thinking, well, like what you said with Reddit, like it's doing so well because the community of Reddit is kind of untouchable. Like there's the longing for it. Reddit is the place. It's solid. And people might even prefer it if they know, right, over like individualized algorithm stuff. But I'm thinking about translating that to other forms of like market logic, where a lot of the time it's like, well, how is this going to grow for a small number of people, like the shareholders? Now it's like, I'd be curious to see what happens with the shareholders of Reddit, but because they're gonna, one of the incentives is like, well, how is this stock going to go up? Do you have to change it in any way?
Are you gonna have to advertise, which kind of takes away from the integrity? I mean, they already have ads.
Right. So, they didn't have ads before, right?
There were like minimal ads, and then there was one time where it was like, okay, now there are ads on here, and now it's very similar to other platforms where they're pretty common.
Yeah. Like X now is like if you don't go premium, it's like
that was like a very uncomfortable experience when I was on.
Oh no, it's
X
bad.
earlier.
It's like a mess. It looks like a mess.
It's so ugly. Like I sound like I'm being dramatic, but like it genuinely made me feel like I ate like some greasy gas station food.
No,
and I'm like, yo,
what
is this?
Yeah, and it could be. This is what bothers me. It's like, all right, Elon, like.
I know. I mean, that's a very clear criticism. Is like this guy puts his money where his mouth is, and then it fails.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like
times.
the X thing, and then you know, like a few other things.
Yeah, and it's not even like the infrastructure is bad, but I'm sure that they were trying to like save money in one way or another. But like it was demonstrably better a few years ago, just in the viewing experience of this app. And now, it is like.
I said, what were you trying to do?
It's like being in a gas station. That's true.
You see, maybe that's like the differing in opinions between he and I. It's like he sees the value in the individual and like freedom of speech, which is like, you weren't looking. I was doing it in quotes.
Oh.
Whereas I believe in the power of community.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Reddit has this upside, and he saw upside in Twitter. But the
irony of Twitter was that it was
the town square.
Yeah, it was community.
A while ago, though. Was it community though?
Yeah, I think also like from a political point of view, like
the political communities. Yeah, those
absolutely.
Existed. Yeah, for sure.
And I think getting things out into the world that were like the reason I went back on Twitter was because of January 6th. I wasn't in the country.
Yeah, that must have been
and I was
fun.
like, what the hell is happening? And that's the only place I got like live videos is on Twitter.
I was working at CNBC that day.
Oh my God.
And it was just like a normal day, and it was like, oh yeah, people are invading the Capitol. I'm like, yo, what? Because like election day was like a big thing, you know, like at a news company. It's like live news is like big thing.
Yeah.
But then January 6th, like I didn't understand it, and I'm like, wait, they're dead ass running up the steps.
That's what it felt like. It was like, what? Like what? Like I need to see this. Like I need to understand, and like getting like live, like, okay, this is what's happening right now, like these are the videos. Like someone's just like videoing from like their apartment window or videoing, like that was the power of Twitter, where it was like gonzo journalism, like immediately.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a good point too.
That's what I feel like why I'm mad at Elon, because I feel like he broke some of that in the sense of like,
I don't know. I'm just so dismissive of Twitter though. Like I see the power, like I was telling you about Substack earlier, like power in the hands of writers and the trust of people based on your gut. That's kind of what Substack feels like.
No, it is. I should caveat this because like my journey with Twitter was also like, I felt like there were journalists that I was reading for a long time, and then I went into the Twitter sphere and like they all just kind of were sniping at each other, and it made me feel like I don't even know what to do anymore.
The whole journalism sphere, like
who to believe.
I'm like so
it's like
cool
it's
off
too
that.
it's almost like too exposed, where it's like if you can just snark immediately at another journalist so quickly, like I don't know if this is good for journalism itself.
It became like melodrama and it's like soap opera shit. Like But
it's also like in the internet too. I think there's been this like the different waves of the internet where like, and we're still in it, where everything is just like hot take, or this is why this is wrong. Here are 5. Here's a thread. You know, this is why.
Threads, bro.
Yeah.
Get on Substack, everybody. Like you need to get on Substack because it's the combination of that open discourse of Twitter and then the community thing of Reddit.
It's like more of a contained space, maybe.
Yeah, and then the people are there with the right intentions. You know, like because it's been getting big over the last few months, I've started to see it's like, you just posted a selfie. There had no context.
Right.
There was nothing to that.
Right.
You're saying some inflammatory shit. Like that is not helpful and it's also harmful.
Right.
And I give a lot of credence, like, or I give a lot of leeway to, you know, people being offensive, harmful, whatever it is. But if it's harmful to me, then it's probably really harmful to a lot of other people.
Right.
Like, why are you bringing that here? You probably know what you're doing.
Yeah, that provocation kind of, like, the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, it's like, don't do that, bro. Funny enough, there was a post on Note on Substack, they call it, and someone replied. She was like, it was just kind of like it was like bait. I'm like, this is like a Twitter style bait. Because what the guy said, I'm like, this is tone. I didn't read it with that negative tone, but I know someone else would, and she read it with the tone. So she said something and was like, you know, just like some snarky thing. And I replied to it, not to like engage in like a thing. I was like, let me see how I can explain what the poster is trying to say.
Yeah.
And then I explained it, and I was like, well, this is true for him because, you know, he's speaking from experience.
Right.
His experience is true no matter what. Even if you disagree with it, I would expect you to disagree with it.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, that's a negative way to think. Then there's something like, whatever. And then she was like, but what do I know? I'm just a girl. I'm like, don't do that. Because when you kind of like shoot yourself in the foot.
Wait, sorry, give me the context again.
Like the original post? Or like
because you were explaining.
I was
something?
explaining something, and then I was like, wait, that had nothing to do with the post or with me.
Yeah.
You explained yourself and just kind of made it like, now you're giving me the opportunity to like jump at you by saying
it's
this,
also
I'm
like,
just a girl thing.
Or it's like a accusation.
Yeah, it's like you accused me of not knowing what I'm
she's
saying.
accusing you of mansplaining is what it sounds like from this brief.
I guess.
This brief synopsis.
Sure. And she, so I responded to, I'm like, okay, how do I respond to this in a way that's like really constructive? And I tried it, and I like explained, I did my best.
Yeah.
And then I put my phone away for a while, and I was thinking about it a lot. I'm like, this is like
see, that's what I'm
the frontier of Substack.
Right.
And so when I came back, I'm dreading it, and then I see she's like, oh, well, you know, when you explain it that way, I actually see your point. And actually, after a brief view of your profile, like, I agree with a lot of what you say. I'm like, oh, like, that's how it's supposed to go.
Peace was dawned upon the land.
Exactly. And, you know, like, I kind of wish, like, it doesn't matter who the messenger is. Like, just look at what I'm saying. Like, you look at my profile, yeah, I'm usually, like, on the right side.
The internet is a great example of how annoying it is. Everything's defensive. It's defensive first.
Yeah. Because people are really insecure.
This is why I don't really bother with the internet a lot. It's because it's like, this is a waste of time. Think about how much mental energy went into you being like, how do I write the tone that she's going to get?
But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's kind of like constructive. It's like problem solving.
Right.
And when it comes to words, and you being like, Twitter's just like, you're just throwing up words. Substack, you're very deliberate with the writing. I love it. So
well,
clean.
That's supposed to be what Substack is, like essays, like writing.
But that's like, there's notes now. So it's like Twitter.
Oh.
You got to see it. I'll show you my feed after.
That's like Instagram made notes.
Threads. I haven't seen it too much.
But see,
it's probably
because
like
you know what it is? This is like click.
Shit.
This is like click capitalism, because they know that creating that space where people are just like vomiting random things is addictive for people. They will come.
Because it's easy and it's cheap. I had to sit there and think of how to make this person like, not change their view, but like
be open to.
Yeah, be open-minded.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, I'm like, it's mainly. I mean, that's good for you that you did that. I would not have had the patience.
I like doing that though. That is like what I kind of like, that type of conflict and conflict resolution in a healthy way.
Well, you're thinking about it like, I'm going to do the right thing here. Right. I mean,
wait, I remember what the post was, and I remember, so he was like, don't lose your life for a woman because she will bring another man to your funeral. And I'm like, oh, I read that, I'm like, tone. What does that read as? It's like,
that was just like a
woman
contextualized just thought somebody had, and they put it on the internet?
Posted that. And then she responded like saying whatever. And I'm like, I see what he's saying. He's actually saying something in the benefit of women. You don't want to lose your life over her because now you're not doing what she liked for you. Mm-hmm. You're not like doing anything for yourself and for y'all. You're losing your life for her. And in that way, if you lose your life,
yes,
it's not about you anymore. Like, and why wouldn't she show up to your funeral with someone else? You see what I'm saying?
Do you remember what her initial answer to this?
It was just kind of like responding to the tone. It wasn't anything like really, which like, I mean, it's fair. And I understood why she said that. And she was just kind of saying like, it wasn't true, but I'm like, it's true in the sense like, this is how he sees this happening. Like, it obviously didn't happen to him. He's not dead.
Okay.
But and I explained this part, and this is what clicked, is that like, you don't want the man you're with to lose his life for you and become like not only obsessive but kind of like self-destructive in the name of you, because he will lose himself and you will lose the person that you loved. Mm-hmm. And now when he's gone, like, you're obviously gonna move on. And like, I think he was posting it in a way that's like, they're not loyal, you know, like she's gonna move on kind of thing. But then it's like, wait, the way I read it is like, yeah, you don't want to lose your life over anything unless it's like a passion.
I think you had deeper thoughts about this than he did.
Probably. But I just thought it was kind of like good visuals or something like that. Yeah. And it's like a lesson where it's like, you know, lose your life over something you're passionate about or like other people, but not like your spouse. Because it's like a vacuum. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, from a woman's perspective, like, you don't want to lose yourself in a man because then you're going to get taken advantage of. You know, like, I mean, it's bi-directional. It's the same kind of thing. But, you know, it's just the visual that it helped explain a concept that I'm like, I get that. I understand like why you shouldn't do that. Yeah. And I mean, it's happened to people. You've seen it happen to like, it's like celebrities and stuff, or like rock stars. It's like, you went in over your head over someone else, and you got burned by it, and the public kind of sees like, oh wow. It's like, nah, he did that to himself.
Right. I think, well, from my outsider's perspective, it also sounds like, let's think about the internet, the fickle animal of the internet. What she's also probably responding to, right, is like this kind of tone or pattern of the internet that like, there's part of me, there's like the anthropologist part of me that's like, just, how do you just look at it? Because it's like there's all this like pseudo manosphere fodder, and then you get like women commentators trying to like interject, and usually they're like jumped on. But then there's also the debate of like, are they jumped on by bots? Are they jumped on by actual people? But like, because like takes like that, but there was no context for this guy's take, right? It's just like, this is my thought.
There's not much context at all in Substack, which is, I also like that. They're kind of just like ideas or wisdoms that are like isolated.
But I think that's also the problem, point blank, is like thoughts without context are not usually the beginning of a useful debate.
Unless you know how to place the context.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you need a context. You can't just like take that, like for her, she's responding to something that in that lack of context seems like what you're, like that.
It's the only way she knows how to interpret it, which is also fair, which is why I was giving her response credence. I'm like, I see why you say this.
Did this guy ever respond?
I don't know, probably not. People don't reply on Substack the way I would like. It kind of annoys me.
Right, so
I respond a lot and I reply a lot.
I mean, it sounds like you made what the idea of the internet was, which was like, we're all going to learn something today. Whereas like, I feel like most of the time it's just people yelling their point of view and then leaving.
Yo, learn something, contribute, be schooled. You know how much I love being schooled? Yeah. Like I say something and it's like, no, this guy's an idiot. He said this. Like when I say stuff about things I don't really know about, which is not too often because I just don't try to speak on shit I don't know. When I get schooled on it, I'm like,
okay, point taken.